Recording in progress.
The floor is yours, sir.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first Public Improvement Commission hearing of 2024. And we will get started. And I will call to order the Public Improvement Commission hearing of January 11th, 2024. Mr. Liming, please take the roll call.
Certainly. Would the representative from the Public Works Department please state his or her name for the record?
Yasha Franklin Hodge.
Transportation Department?
Amy Gordon.
Inspectional Services Department?
Brian Ronan.
Water and Sewer Commission?
Denise Devlin.
Disabilities Commission?
Sarah Leon.
We do not have somebody from Property Management today, but we do have a quorum.
All right. Thank you very much, Todd. So our first order of business, hearing minutes 1. At the request of the Public Improvement Commission staff, the acceptance of the minutes of the PIC hearing held on December 21st, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 21st, 2023. Second.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. And since this is the first hearing of the year, we do not have any public hearings, so we will move right into new business, starting with new business number 1, 175 North Harvard Street, Brighton pedestrian easement, specific repairs on a set of petitions by the President and Fellows of Harvard College. Would the petitioners please introduce themselves and their affiliations, give us a brief overview of the project and the various actions, and after that, we will open up the floor for the commission to ask questions.
Good morning. I'll start with an introduction. My name is Susan Malab. I'm with Harvard Capital Projects. I'm managing the project to build the new home for the American Repertory Theater, 80,000 square foot structure built of mass timber, will house 2 performance theaters with an expansive lobby that connects to a exterior yard at the corner of North Harvard Street and South Campus Drive, and that's the view on the screen that we're looking at right now. The development of that site also includes a housing component that you can see in the background, the high-rise, and that's being managed by another group of people through North Star. I'll hand it off now to John Schmidt to talk about the details of our request.
Good morning, Commissioners, and Happy New Year. John Schmidt with Mitch Engineering. As indicated, this is the view from the southeast, and I also have a view here from the south approaching the site. And this is North Harvard Street to the right, and this is the building, this is the sidewalk, and the bus stop that we've been coordinating with the MBTA, as you can see right here. Here's a plan view of the site. The proposal before you today has to do with the improvements to the public way North Harvard Street that runs in front of the parcel here. This is a private way that goes through the campus and addresses the housing in the rear. It comes out back this way. The proposed improvements include providing a 7-foot wide bike lane along this area here. That is, it's at the gutter line here, and then it transitions up, so there's a flush condition through this area here, across the tabletop, and then back down. There's also a tabletop crosswalk at this side here. The project proposes providing 8-foot wide concrete sidewalk for public access. Although the sidewalk is wider, we are part of this application is asking for a pedestrian easement that will allow for an 8-foot wide concrete sidewalk. We also have 6 new street trees that are proposed within this area here, and a 6-foot wide pervious paver zone that will capture and recharge stormwater that flows off of the sidewalk area. The drawings that are before you provide a little bit more detail here, although the drawing file is easy to read. So this is, again, the drawing that's before you that you would vote upon. We also have some detail sheets in the set here. And then the pedestrian easement is this section, this drawing here, which will provide 8-foot wide public pedestrian access along North Harvard Street. and it's needed, an easement is required to provide all the amenities, including street trees, pervious pavers, and new raised crosswalk. The raised bikeway. This is a rendering of what the proposed bus stop would look like. VHB has been working with the MBTA on this. We're looking at a type B narrow bus stop that would be set here. And there's the bikeway comes up this way here. There's crossing here and here. And we're also anticipate a small fence that would protect pedestrian, that would direct the pedestrian to the crosswalks as opposed to them just stepping out into the bikeway. That's about the extent of my presentation. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, questions?
Good morning, sorry. Good morning, Susan. This is Faraj Singh with Public Works. Susan, this is an amazing project. Do you have any, and I hope I'm using the right word, billboards or any advertising boards within this footprint that details the events that might be at these performing centers? Any advertising or saying, tonight there's a show? Any electronic billboards? That's the word I was looking for.
Yes, we do have a plan for exterior signage for the building. One of those views shows the limit of that on the north Harvard Street facade. And we intend to, you can see on what we call the cheeks as you approach the sloped walkway to the lobby entrance. There'll be signage there as well as on the North Harvard side of the building, the Goel Center. And we may have a few digital poster boxes, not very large, but those would be at the street level as you walk up, so to activate that area. Does that answer your question?
Kind of, Susan. So in a nutshell, you will have electronic message boards, but they will be within the private property or the private building.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, not on the public sidewalk, correct.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We just want to confirm that the shelter type and bus stop was coordinated with the MBTA system-wide accessibility team. Just wondering if you could provide confirmation of that. Thank you.
Sarah, I cannot provide that to you today, but I will at the public hearing, unless VHB is on the call. They've been leading that coordination effort.
Hi, yes, this is Adam Pritchard with VHB. We are coordinating with MBTA. I'm not sure if it specifically went to the accessibility team, but we will check in with that.
Great, thank you so much.
A couple of questions on my end. With the bike facility and the floating bus island, what are the expectations around maintenance for those, in particular snow and snow management?
John here, and Susan, correct me if I misspeak, but I understand the project is an LMI is presently being reviewed by the city for the maintenance of the sidewalk and associated improvements. We will review that and ensure that the bike lane is included as part of the maintenance of that.
Okay, and appreciate that, just noting the 7-foot width with the curb reveals is slightly below our 7.5-foot maintenance requirement for city maintained facilities. And so just want to make sure that it's the easiest thing here is if the building signs up to maintain that, then that resolves those concerns around the bike lane width. And similarly, go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. The LMI has not been submitted yet, but it will be prior to the public hearing.
Okay, excellent. And does that, will those maintenance responsibilities extend to the floating bus stop, or has there been arrangements made with the MBTA to maintain, or JC Deco to maintain that platform free of snow?
I look to others on this call to address that.
Yeah, this is Adam Pritchard again. So we are still trying to work out with MBTA and JC Deco as far as who will take ownership of that. But once we know, we'll let you know.
Okay, excellent. Please do. What can you you, I realize it's a sort of surface treatment, not a PIC element, but can you just clarify for the area along North Harvard where the bike lane runs and I'm seeing a buffer in this rendering, is there vertical separation, flex posts or something else there to prevent vehicles from pulling up to the curb by intruding into the bike lane?
Through this area here you're speaking to?
Yeah, exactly.
I looked to.
There are flexible posts.
Flex posts.
Flex posts, okay,
Yes.
okay, great. And then last question I had is I believe that there's a Blue Bike station currently located at this location, and I'm just wondering if there is a plan to relocate that and if that has been sorted out as part of this.
We moved that Blue Bike station a couple of months ago, and it's on the opposite corner of where the McCurdy track is right now.
Got it.
You
Okay,
actually
so
could
it's already
see
been-
it, it's in the outline there on South Campus Drive.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so already been relocated. And that South Campus is, and is it at sidewalk level or street level currently?
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk level, okay, great, excellent. I don't think I had any other questions. Other commissioners, questions?
Susan, apologizing again to follow up on Chief Franklin Hodges' thoughts. It's like a two-part question. The maintenance agreements, Mr. Lining, do we have an overall maintenance agreements like a master umbrella maintenance agreement with Harvard since their footprint in Austin Brighton is getting larger and larger, or is it project specific?
No, project specific, and this
Okay.
will be a project specific element.
But the tenets of our maintenance agreements are consistent amongst all their projects, so this way we are not going to be scratching our head thinking, are they doing this or that, right? So it's a common platform.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep, we're using our standard form, standard.
That we appreciate all they do, but we need their help to look after the stuff, including snow and ice clearance. Susan, the other thought pattern is, since you have a performing center, and again, to follow up on Chief Franklin Hodges' thoughts about cars not being where they are, if I have to drop off a passenger or someone that is going to the performing center, where will they do the loading, unloading, not loading for commercial purposes, but Uber, Lyft, because some of these vehicles tend to misbehave in places and then they make things more challenging for the cyclists.
Okay. So Uber, Lyft, we have a plan to do some geofencing on North Academic Way for that drop-off, which that street is cut off, but it would be an extension of South Campus Drive flowing east towards Western Ave. That connects North Campus. North Academic Way connects North Harvard Street and Western Ave. It's not on this plan. And then there is actual vehicle drop-off for people that might be, quick, we have some handicap parking as well as some drop-off on Ivy Lane as well as on South Campus Drive, but not meant to be, long-term parking on South Campus Drive.
Chief, my concern is cars, when they drop off, the passengers on the side of the vehicle, when the door opens, it's going to smack right into a cyclist. That is, even though you have those flex states, so that's the ongoing concern that I have.
Do we know the width of the buffer with the flex posts in it?
John, go back to that view. Let's see. And
Franking here looks like it's about 3 feet wide. 2 to 3 feet wide. I measured the ball on there.
Okay. It would be good to actually know the specific dimensions of that. To Para's point, I think 3-foot buffers we typically consider to be sufficient for avoiding car door impacts, but 2 feet, which sometimes happens when there's no adjacent parking, can create the risk that Para just articulated. And I mean, I think appreciate the work to do geofencing here. We know that that it is from practical experience that it is imperfect and people will stand where they want to stand to flag down the Uber that's on its way, and that often does result in loading out of a travel lane in a situation like this. So we do just want to make sure that the physical design of the infrastructure and the striping and other kind of less permanent materials like the flex posts does ensure that there is some measure of safety for all, even when people are not obeying the intended use of pickup drop-off areas in the neighborhood.
So we'll have a diagram demonstrating that at the public hearing.
Okay, that'd be great. And while I have myself unmuted, one other just follow-up question. The fence that's located on the the floating bus stop, can we ensure that can we confirm that will be included in the LMI as someone's clear area of responsibility that other than the city?
I'm sorry, I was just going to a drawing we have detailed. The buffer is 3 feet wide.
Okay.
That bike lane. I just wanted to confirm that during the meeting. Good. And I'm sorry, your second question was about the railing around the floating.
Yeah, just confirming that will be covered by the LMI and not something left unclear as to who is responsible for maintaining it when it gets hit by a plow or similar.
Yep, including grading. Okay, we'll make sure we address that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions, comments? PIC staff or members of the public?
I will mention one thing. Through the course of reviewing this project, we recognize that Harvard's Barry's Corner project, which is immediately south of this, when they came through PIC about 10 years ago, we missed a couple of the legal documents that were needed. We've had discussions with the project team, and they've, I think, committed to finalizing those and submitting them. So I expect those to be executed and turned into PIC staff before the project's public hearing. Other than that, I don't have any comments. I will take this opportunity to remind the public, if you wish to add testimony or ask questions, please use the raised hand function, which can be found at the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. I believe we had, there she is, there's Rachel with Streets Cabinet. Go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, this is Rachel Luna from the Office of Green Infrastructure. We had provided some comments to the proponent in regards to the furnishing zone material, and that would require further discussion with the proponent. We suggest using a bioswale in that area. As we discussed, the area is not intended for a drop-off zone. And it's not adjacent to a parking space. The need for it to be hardscape, I think, there is a need for it to be a hardscape.
Rachel, we'll reach out to you in the next few days to walk through that request.
Excellent, sounds good. Thank you, John.
Chief, I have one tiny comment.
Yes.
Susan, at the public hearing, this is the new business. For the public hearing, Susan, if you could just add a couple of sentences in your testimony as to the community engagement process which you all engaged in and the level of support and engagement that is there for this project from the wonderful community. If you could just add a couple of sentences, that will be most helpful.
I will, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ma.
All right, hearing no other questions or comments. Todd, our next hearing is on January 25th, correct?
Correct.
All right, will you be ready for your public hearing on January 25th?
We will see you then. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, on to our next item, new business 2, Island Street at 909 Massachusetts Avenue, Roxbury pedestrian easement, specific repairs, and a set of petitions by Atlantic Oliver Mass LLC. Would the proponents please introduce themselves, their affiliations, give us an overview of the project and the actions proposed here.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Happy New Year. Attorney Nick Zazula, McDermott, Quilty, Miller, and Hanley LLP, 28 State Street in Boston. We are the zoning and permitting attorneys for the project. On our team today, you've got our civil engineer, Kevin Sanders, who's the Director of Civil Engineering at EBI Consulting. We also have John Adair from the property ownership team and the petitioner, Atlantic Oliver Mass LLC. I believe Kevin will be pulling up our presentation, although I don't see him on. Kevin, are you on? I see Kevin Sanders is on from our team, but he's on mute and he's not on video. But Mr. Chair, while he's getting hopefully online here, just give you a brief background of why we're here today. So these petitions are for specific repairs and pedestrian easement along Island Street. These were originally approved by the commission in April 2022. And we're back here today to ask for some revisions to those plans, as they were approved a year and a half ago. And the property owner has been cooperating with the city. There was a bike lane project on Mass Ave. There's Kevin. There was this bike lane project on Mass Ave, which I'm sure everyone's aware of, and that has been wrapped up. During that process, the property owner agreed to close the Mass Ave entrance to their site, which was their main entrance, and to use Island Street as their main point of access and egress to the site. And while they were waiting for kind of those Mass Ave improvements to wrap up before they started their work on Island Street to not, butt up against that project, they took another look at their own plans. And you can see kind of here the site, Island Street to the top, Mass Ave to the right. And you can see the curb cut on the right-hand side that will be closed up as a result of this project. So while they were waiting for those Mass Ave improvements to wrap up, they took another look at their own plans. Upon some additional review, those plans that were approved back in April 2022 were for pretty wide sidewalks along the streetscape improvements. Island Street's a side street off of Mass Ave. They want to accommodate the city input for obviously wider sidewalks and streetscape improvements, but also want to maintain as much flexibility as possible for their current tenant. Their current tenant is We Drive U, which is a national service that provides shuttle service solutions to local universities and hospitals and other institutional users. But they also wanted to provide as much flexibility for future uses on their site as well, just like any property owner. So Kevin, if you could bring up the slide that shows the proposed changes just briefly in a summary, I think that would be helpful for the commissioners. And then Mr. Chair, Kevin can show you specifically what we're asking for, but I think that context might be helpful for everybody as to why we're here. Kevin, do you have that slide with the bullet?
Can you see it now? I'm showing it. I thought I was showing it.
I can speak to it though. It's okay if we don't have them.
I have the rendering up. I don't know if anybody can see it.
I can see the rendering. I can't see the slide that we had prepared for.
Okay. I will. 1 second. I'll pull that slide.
Sorry, everybody. I can see it comes there. So if you could increase the. So I'm having. So you can see here again. We just wanted to show and as easily to digest as possible the changes. So all of these changes will still be there, but we're looking to reduce the easement width from a little over 4 on our property. That would be the pedestrian easement. We're looking to reduce the overall sidewalk width, still providing a clear distance for path of travel, looking to move the light poles closer to the curb line to provide additional clear space, and then also moving on-site curb fencing and landscaping closer to the right-of-way to provide more usable open space on the subject property. So when we submitted these plans, again, this was approved in April 2022, but as we submitted these revised plans to all the agencies and departments to look at them, before we got here today. We didn't receive any comments for these revisions. And the last thing I'll note before Kevin quickly goes through the plans to show you what I just stated above, this project has already been awarded to a contractor. Long lead materials are on site and ready to be installed in the spring. So I think the timing and sequential nature of this with the Mass Ave improvements from the city, again, allowed us to take a closer look at our own project. And so that's why we're proposing these revisions today. So Kevin, I see you have the plans up now. If I could toss it to you to kind of go through those proposed revisions in more detail from the previous approvals, I'll talk to you for you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So as Nick eloquently said, we're doing a small change to this already approved project back in April of 22 to allow for more usable space on site and for operations of the current user. So if you look here, this bottom here is the original petition. So essentially we had all the landscaping in front and we had a very large sidewalk along Island Street. After discussions, we discussed this to see if we could reduce the size of that sidewalk because Island Street is not an arterial road. It's going to be a side street off of Mass Ave, and it really doesn't warrant 11-foot sidewalk. So what we did is we reduced it down to 7.2-foot sidewalk, and with just some small clear areas at the driveway entrances and at the light poles. And the easement now, instead of being 4 feet, is now just over 1 feet, I believe, or 1 foot. So that is the substantive change. Everything is exactly the same. Everything was just moved toward the Island Street right away. It's going to provide the same amount of screening, the same amount of landscaping. It's just essentially reducing the sidewalk width along Island Street. So with that, I will open it up to if there's any questions.
Commissioners, questions?
Nick, I apologize for not having photographic memory of your petition back in 2022, but basically the site is being used for what purposes? Just want to put the contextual framework as to the width of the sidewalk, what it's used in comparison to the land use. So this site is being used for, how would you finish that sentence, Nick?
Sure, the site is being used, currently the site is being used, it's an industrial parking lot. The site is currently being used, Commissioner, for which is the national shuttle solutions hospitals, among others. So it's basically being used for parking for their shuttle service, which they then use throughout the city of Boston for these institutional users.
So it will continue to function as an industrial use?
Correct. That is the current use, and that is the planned use. They have a lease. I don't know how long the lease is for. John, maybe you could speak to that for Para, but yes, it is an industrial use currently, a parking use for these buses and these shuttle buses, and it will continue to be for the near future. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
With the relocation of the streetlights, what is the spacing between the streetlight and the curb, and does that differ from city standards, and if so, has that received approval from our street lighting division?
Yeah,
So we didn't receive any comments from street lighting division on this. We only moved them very slightly from the previous approved position. We moved them like half a foot. So they are essentially on the back of the curb. And given that the Boston streetlights, they are flush, the flush mounted streetlights, the Boston City standard.
We have a few different standard streetlights. I think the concern here, appreciating that it was a small move, the concern here is just that streetlights get knocked down all the time, and the closer they are to the curb, the more likely that is to happen, especially in an area with an industrial use and where you have large vehicles like buses and whatnot making turns in and out of these driveways. There's always that concern. So I can make sure that our street lighting division has a chance to review this, but I think it would be helpful for them to see a plan set that very clearly, if we don't already have one, that very clearly shows marked the distance between those streetlight fixtures and the curb line so that they can make sure that they are comfortable with that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think between now and public hearing, it allows us to move forward in 2 weeks. We can certainly have that for you.
I can jump in. Our street lighting division actually did get a chance to review and has approved these updated plans.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Todd.
Even better.
And can I ask, where are we in terms of any LMI and standard easement language? Do we have those documents negotiated and ready to go? Are we still in conversations about the details of those?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So when we went through this process in April 2022, I think we worked with Chong and Todd and team and staff. We have LMIs pretty far along. Obviously, we would need to revise them if this is approved for these dimensions, right, and these changes. But my understanding is, and we didn't want to take a look at it until we had this hearing today. But they are pretty far along from a legal perspective. It was my understanding we would just need to tweak them for these new changes. But I have no doubt that Chong and I can work forward to having them pretty much ready to go by the public hearing in 2 weeks.
Okay, so the only reason they weren't executed, they were negotiated and agreed to, but they were held because of the potential for a change to some of the substance. There's not outstanding legal issues related to the substance of those agreements?
I don't believe so. I think there were discussions back in early 2023 and after the first hearing, obviously to go back and forth on some of the specifics on the legal side, but my understanding is that we're ready to move forward and that some of those legal side of things had a little bit to do with the fact of the width of the sidewalk, right? And I think some of those issues now, because of how wide the pedestrian easement was for something feet on our site, now down to 1, I think some of those questions that the property owner had have now been resolved as a result. So I think we're in good shape to move forward.
Okay, that's great to hear. And my ask would be that prior to your public hearing, you either execute the LMI and the easement. Well, the easement obviously dependent on this hearing process, but that you just come to the next year public hearing, just able to confirm that with some follow-up conversations with Chong that those are either done or it's a paperwork matter. We just want to make sure that as we approve this, that there aren't outstanding questions about the scope and scale of the LMI or what's covered by it. So I think if you can have that next round of conversations with Chong between now and your public hearing, that would be appreciated.
Understood. We will do it.
All right.
I just had a quick question about the raised concrete structure at the ramp and wondering if there's an opportunity there for some softscape or landscaping, like low-lying landscaping, so sightlines can be maintained, but reducing sort of the hardscape in that non-walkable area.
So Sarah, I believe that may be already be built because that was part of the bike trail that they put through there.
So what portion of this has already been built?
So I believe all of this up to here has been built on the sidewalk. We would be picking it up from here and going to to the property line. This was already built by DPW. That was another reason why everything got put on hold, is because we had some changes to the plans where the bus stop moved from this side of Island Street to this side.
I think it might be helpful to indicate which parts of the plan are within the scope of this project, and what parts have already been constructed for the next set of plans. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions? PIC staff or members of the public?
I think we're all set with this one.
Sorry, I was able to just pull up a recent view of the location, and just to clarify on Sarah's point, Sarah, were you referring to this triangular constructed element? Yeah. So I do not, at least in the imagery that I'm looking at, I see the bus island has been constructed, but I do not see that triangle as an existing constructed element. So I believe that that would be a new element introduced by this project.
Okay, if it's not already constructed, I think we'd like the team to consider some softscape there. And just to my earlier point, just clarifying the scope of the project, clearly on the plans, the limit of work.
So Sarah, what kind of softscape would you want to use? Because most likely grass is not going to grow in such a small area, especially if it's not irrigated. And if it's this area, if you put rocks down, it's going to end up kids taking rocks and throwing them. What kind of material would you like?
I might defer to the city's green infrastructure staff for that. It's a little bit outside of my realm of expertise. Okay. But if we could explore some options, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
I could chime in here, Sarah. Yeah, we could send you some of our standard details for like a bioswale vegetated landscaping area for that location.
Rachel, if I may chime in, I know this the previous project got cooked before the GIT was in its full form, and I believe the petitioner might be agreeable for you, Rachel, to take a look at it and see what you would have proposed for if this project came in today, and see, because I think Sarah might be neutral to something which you might propose, and I think there's a win-win situation over here.
Okay. We'll look at
If
it.
the petitioner is agreeable to all of that, because we are trying to have a consistent topography into this area also. So, Nick, are you okay with it?
Yeah, I think we're happy to work with Rachel.
Awesome.
I think before the hearing in 2 weeks, Evan and I can understand what was built and have a clear understanding of that Trivial Pursuit piece, for lack of a better word, triangle, and we can come up with some ideas and make sure that it's on the plans, and we'll work with Rachel on that to have something in place in 2 weeks.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, last call. Questions, comments? All right, hearing none, will you be ready for your public hearing in 2 weeks on January 25th?
We will. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. We'll see you then. On to our final item today, new business 3, 24 Dry Dock Avenue, South Boston, projection license on a joint petition by Cronin Dry Dock LLC and the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation of Boston, DBA, the Boston Planning and Development Agency. Would the proponents please introduce themselves, their affiliations, give us an overview of the project and the action being proposed here.
Thanks so much. I'm Caitlin McCarthy. I'm here on behalf of Cronin Dry Dock, who's the developer of 24 Dry Dock. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for allowing us to present today. So the project we're presenting on is 24 Dry Dock. It's an approximately 237,000 square foot life science project located within the Ray Flynn Marine Industrial Park. As part of this development, just a quick map here showing where it is. As part of the development, we are looking to install an awning at the entrance of the building, which will extend over the sidewalk. As you mentioned, this project is a co-petition with the EDIC because the property is controlled by the EDIC. However, there are plans in the future to convey this property to the city in the future. So it was suggested that in order to make sure that process goes as smoothly as possible, we go through the PIC process with the canopy to ensure that it meets PIC standards. This is the canopy we'll be discussing, which is right along Dry Dock Avenue. And just a quick note, there is an LMI that John Polgini, our lawyer, will be drafting to work with Chong. So together with the BPDA, we're taking this proposal through the PIC process to ensure the awning complies with the city engineering standards. Here you can see the canopy at the front of the building, and just a little bit about the dimensions, which we worked with PIC to ensure that it complied with the standards. So there's at least 15-foot clearance between the sidewalk and, let me find it better, between the sidewalk and the canopy, and it comes out over the sidewalk. Let me see, this is a better one. So there's at least 15 feet clearance between the sidewalk and the canopy itself will extend about 4.5 feet out onto the public sidewalk. We have some other team members with us on the phone here. We have SGA, the architect, Scott Barnhole, and Xin Yao Huang. We have Michael Kanivi from the Cronin Group and John Polgini, who's our lawyer representing us. I will hand it over to Scott Barnhole to add anything from the architect's point of view on this canopy.
Hi there, my name is Scott Barnholt. I'm a director of architecture with SGA. Caitlin, I think you can leave it on that previous image. This drawing is actually incorrect. Just want to make sure we're looking at the correct material. So just to reiterate the dimensions, the canopy extends 4'6" beyond the property line of the building. It is 59'6" in length. And the canopy itself is integrated into the building architecture. As you can see, there's a long facade along Dry Dock Avenue. The canopy is important to demarcate and to identify the entrance to the building. The canopy itself has been designed to not shed any water or snow onto the sidewalk. It has an internal drainage system which ties back into the building storm drainage, so there's no water or snow or ice shed onto the sidewalk. And as you can see, its dimensions comply with, it does not exceed 2/3 of the width of the sidewalk. It does not project beyond that limitation. And as Caitlin mentioned, it is a minimum of 15 feet above the sidewalk. So I think that essentially covers what we're proposing here. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, question?
Chief, thought pattern which I want to share, and I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill or sort of way. Scott, when the whole canopy license thought pattern entered the vocabulary of the Public Improvement Commission, it was meant for things like awnings or things that can be, because it's a license, that can be easily adjusted, i.e. Revoked or adjusted, okay? This so that it benefits the needs of the city as well as the property owner. This one looks more of an integral part of your structure. It is not something that can be removed easily if it is needed. I'm just questioning the PIC team whether the administrative process which we are trying to go through to legitimize this use of the public space is the correct path. So Todd, I suppose it's a question to us. whether we should be a discontinuance of the air ride so that it's an integral part of the building. Because if it is a projection license, it implies that the license can be revoked by the city. And I don't think the city wants to revoke this license and gives Scott a headache.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, no, we consider that, and we went through the discussions with both the project team and also BPDA and EDIC staff as well as legal counsel. I think ultimately it came down to the fact that there is no habitable space up above here. Yes, it would be difficult to remove this portion of the canopy from the right-of-way if we ever needed to, but it could technically be done if we needed to cut it back. But I think this is in line with other projection licenses and canopies of a similar design. That's
awesome.
Commission.
Awesome. So, I mean, if I went through that thinking process, I have nothing more to say other than Todd. I think Dry Dock is one of the streets where Larry, Momolia, and we are trying to. So since you are also looking at the street transfer, if we could make sure that whatever is happening over here is consistent with the right-of-way requirements for the street transfer, if I'm making any sense to you.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we've talked about that too. We're going to insert language into the license document that states it does take effect until the city assumes ownership. Also, it's my understanding that the project is going to return to the PIC at some point in the future for streetscape improvements. Scott or Caitlin, if one of you would like to speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
I defer to Caitlin on that question.
I could answer that. Hi, everybody. John Pulgini, the attorney on this project. First, Para, to answer your question, yeah. So Todd, myself, Matt Donovan, and Lisa Harrington from the BPDA had gone through a long process with this. Most importantly, we're executing, as you know, with the Ray Flynn Marine Industrial Park. You don't own the property in fee. It is a ground lease, so we're trying to coordinate that the awning itself will run in conjunction with that ground lease, because nothing down there is permanent, and that way it protects the developer as well as it protects the city on the other side. Secondly, with respect to future road improvements and things like that, this was done primarily, this was not city-owned property. This is kind of a unusual action. I think Todd had referenced that there had been previous similar things like this with the Rose Kennedy Greenway and things like that after the big dig, as far as the signing streets over. So as far as future improvements, we're probably more discussions with the BPDA and with PIC on that, but right now we're focusing only on the awning, and everything else, as long as they meet city standards, at some point will be transferred over to the city itself. But we just want to make sure that when you guys do own it, and you know more than anyone because you deal with this day in and day out, that you own something that you would have approved had it been owned by the city at the time it came before this commission.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. And this is Matt Donovan, counsel for the BPDA. I'm working on the awning, and I'll be drafting it with Chong, the license agreement. I just wanted to add that this, for the commissioner who asked the question, this really was an outgrowth out of conversations with Larry and his team about how can we be forward-thinking and avoid problems later. This was flagged that this really should not be rights that should be recorded in the ground lease itself, but needed to be severable from the lease and act on its own agreement. So with Todd's help and with help from the Cronin team, we came up with the solution. And frankly, we hope that this will sort of be a model so that we can catch other problems as they come up prior to the transfer, which there's momentum behind, but obviously is still a little ways off.
Awesome.
Just to clarify, though, will there be an opportunity for PIC to review the other, what would typically be a specific repairs action, understanding that this is not yet our street?
Yes, so that's the goal right now, and it's being discussed internally for how we should do that for several of the developments that are going on. This problem was very specific to the lease drafting, though. So, the building's obviously not going to be constructed tomorrow, but because of how the lease was drafted as is, we felt like we had to pull them out ahead of final signing on the lease to make sure that this was in place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I appreciate why this is coming to us beforehand. I just want to make sure, in the same spirit recognizing that we have a future change of ownership here of the right-of-way, that we do have some commitment to do a review of some kind of the impacts that this project will have to the right-of-way that will come into the city's ownership at some point in the future. I will let the lawyers and others work through what the correct mechanism for that review is, whether it's a hearing or something more administrative, but I just want to make sure that the commission does have a chance to look at whatever modifications are being proposed for or whatever condition is being proposed for what will eventually become public right-of-way prior to that being finalized and advancing towards construction.
Understood, thank you. I will definitely bring that back to the team as well. I think, like I said, I think Larry and sort of the folks on the ground are already thinking through that, but I will certainly bring it to Rebecca Hansen, Director of Real Estate, and Lisa Harrington, General Counsel.
Great. If you can have, for your public hearing, some specific thoughts on how you expect that may work, that would be appreciated.
Mr. Director, could I just interject for 1 second? With respect to any future specific repairs, as this property is currently not owned by the city, I think initially we had discussed probably having some sort of administrative, to the words that you just used, an administrative review, just to make sure that everything is compliant with what you guys would expect if the city owned the property. So it may be a less formal PIC process, but we will be going through that with the help of PIC as well as with EDIC.
Okay, I think that's a potentially very viable strategy. I don't want to render an opinion on it right now because we've not had a chance to discuss, but I do think PIC as a body needs to have a measure of review and sign off on what will be future public right-of-way, and we can discuss prior to your public hearing exactly what that process will look like, but I would like to have clarity on that process before we move ahead on one specific action. But so let's take that offline over the next 2 weeks. Let's get to something that we are in agreement on, and we can memorialize that in your public hearing as a prerequisite to moving forward with this particular action.
Great, thank you.
All right, commissioners, PIC staff, members of the public, any further comments, questions on this action?
No, this is the first of these EDIC projects that's coming through PIC in advance of the street transfer. So they're a little bit of a test case for us, even though we're modeling after other similar situations. So I appreciate their patience and their willingness to cooperate and work with us, and to Matt and his folks up on the 9th floor, that same appreciation goes to them too.
All right, thank you. Hearing nothing else, will you be ready for your public hearing in 2 weeks on January 25th?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Well, we will see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And with that, we have reached the end of our brief agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you all. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.